One of the most common questions I get from emerging founders is they have this big fear they're going to get into franchising. Where am I going to find my first franchisees? Where did your first, half dozen franchisees come from?
So our first two were organically. We did get them through the very first person that signed with us up in New York. He had found us organically. He has a great story. He's a former investment banker,
Hmm.
and he had a really hard time getting a tree service coming to his house. He called 7 different services, 2 showed up, 1 gave him a proposal, they scheduled the work, the guy never even showed up to do the work. So he knew at that point he was thinking about different businesses. He said, "Hey, I would love to be able to penetrate this market."
Hmm.
So he came to us. We came to an agreement. We were able to launch him. Our second one was with my director of franchise, my manager, my sales guy. This was an individual, as a father and son out in Pittsburgh. They were in the National Guard together. So they spent a year together in Iraq. The gentleman, it's my nephew, Dylan. He was working for me for about 4 years. He was serving the guards. He went and did this tour. He met this gentleman, Caleb Hill, out in Pittsburgh. He was talking about the business. He said, "Hey, my uncle's looking to franchise
Hmm.
the business." They got back, we got approved, we connected with them, and it all came together. It was pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And that's how most early franchisees are found organically. Their clients, their family, their friends. What about the few after that?
Through consulting groups. We joined a couple different consulting groups that we got up with, and we had some really good consultants that we were able to believe in the brand, believe in what we can do and grow. And they brought us some really great candidates that are proven to be, they're just great partnerships. They really are. So we're really lucky in that state.
Excellent. Yeah, you sure are. When you were starting out, Josh, did you guys bootstrap this franchise opportunity yourself, the whole initiative, or did you bring in partners? Like, what's kind of how did you this whole thing originate?
So I did get with an advisory group that works in the franchise space. It's called SMB Advisors.
Hmm.
And I did some research. I was lucky they're out of Philadelphia. I didn't actually pick them because they were out of Philadelphia. I picked them because I think they're one of the best advisories and consulting groups to work with. I engaged with them. It was in March of 2021, and they really helped me adopt an operations manual, really bring all the pieces that we were working on since 2019 together and put them in one place as our operations manual, really lock in our FDD. They introduced me to an amazing attorney at Internicola. Charles Internicola and his team are just fabulous to
Hmm.
work with. And I still work with all those people yet to this day. And I think it was a good investment. Everything costs money in any industry, but franchising, as you know,
Hmm.
it's a lot of money. It really is, man. It's like every time you look around, man, you're putting more money out. So you got to make really good, educated decisions. And that was really, it was a really good decision I made to work with them. I think they all came in with either they were a franchisor at one time, they were a franchisee, or they worked for a franchisor or franchisee. So their experience was just really on getting brands up and approved and launched.
Mm.
So I was really happy with it.
And Josh, one of the things you did that was really, really smart that I really want to make sure the audience hears is that you already had your company owned locations doing really well. So
Yep.
you were cash flowing. It's not like you had just had this idea, I'm going to open up this Joshua Tree expert franchise because the name sounds cool and I'm going to franchise and try to keep the lights on by selling franchises. That's not where you were as a business. You had, by the time you franchised, I think I heard you say you had like 50 employees already.
Yeah, yeah. I think at the time we franchised, we had about probably 55 or so. I think that's important. I appreciate you bringing that up because I think as a failing business and you think, hey, I'm going to support it and recover by franchising, man, it is not the right mindset. It really is a costly, it's a pay to play.
Yeah.
It just to do a lot of what we're talking about, the operations manual, the FDD, the ongoing broker fees, if you're working with an FSO, the conferences that you're attending, your marketing. What I really like about franchising is I'm learning a whole new business.
Hmm.
What I learned early on is that selling franchises is nothing like selling home services. Your client perception, your target market, everything is totally different. But there's similarities that yeah, you need to create a marketing plan and strategic marketing. You have to create a budget. You really have to identify, where do you want to go? Hey, country's huge, but where do you want to go? What are the top states and top markets that you want to be in? And you got to build a team that has experience on doing this. And that was, something early on. It's like, I didn't do that. And I learned from that. I really did. I learned from that. Failures, I'll give you one of my biggest failures.
Please.
I jumped in with a lot of these broker groups, which it's expensive to do that. And I shouldn't have. Not as an emerging brand, because some of the broker groups and the consultants, they're like, dude, until you have 10 locations, I'm not even going to pitch you. Right. I don't care what you have until I know that you're successful. I'm not even going to pitch you. And I probably should have held off on doing that, because there's some groups that are just like, man, you're emerging. I really don't want to bring anyone to you yet. And there's very, very few. And then when I say few, not even the broker itself, but the consultant within the broker that says, I believe in you. I think I can help you make a deal.
Yeah, there's many reasons why I love doing this podcast, but I love talking about the failures and the challenges and issues, because it's real. And, unlike what we see on social media when everything looks perfect, talking from, founder to founder, this is not a perfect business, and we are going to fail. And I think what makes people like us different, Josh, is being a risk taker, knowing that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to have failures, or we can call them learnings, right? Whatever you want to call it. But the only way you're going to have a lot of wins is by having some losses along the way. Nobody's going to make a few decisions and win every time. You have to be willing to fail.
Yeah. I think when you look at some of the most successful people, it's, if you're not failing, you're not learning. You've owned a business. You're working, you're making a lot of decisions during the day.
Right.
You just don't, they're not all going to be right. But the important thing is that you decide. And if you do make the wrong decision, you learn from it. But I think failures, that's what makes the taste of success so much better. Because I can tell you what I'm doing right now. It is not easy. It's just not. I'm lucky to have an amazing team behind me, have amazing partners that have joined our brand. But it's tough, man, because you're dealing with people's livelihoods. They are investing their life into you and your brand, and they want the success, even more than you do, obviously. But I know the success of my franchisees is what's going to make us successful overall. But the challenges that you're overcoming, they're way different. The mindset is like, hey, they're kind of like your client, even though they're your partner, because they're coming for you for coaching and mentorism. And like, I got problems, how you going to solve them?
True.
And that's just true. That's just how it is. And, you learn, let's improve and adapt. It's one of our core values. And as we grow, we have to do things differently. We have to learn from our mistakes. We have to, change up processes internally, how we speak and present to people. It's way, way different. Their clients are now our clients as a full brand. We have to know, like, hey, what are the best decisions that we're making at the corporate level that are going to be system wide? We can't just think, hey, we're at these 2 locations. Well, no, we're at 8 locations now. What we're doing here is going to make a difference throughout the whole system. We get to 20 locations. Well, we need to start thinking differently, and getting your team on page with that and all of us thinking is totally different.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.